Hey everyone, I'm Frankie, and we have a fun project for you today. On this episode, we're going to be making a hammock tarp with cat cuts. It is 11-foot ridgeline, 60 inches wide, and sure to keep you dry and warm in nasty weather. So stick with me. It's good to have you here. Do It Yourself with Frankie is filmed in front of a live studio audience. Let's get our materials together. You want to use a 100% polyester thread. It's strong stuff and great for the outdoors. Next, Grosgain. I like to use 7/8 of an inch. To seal our ridgeline, we want to use a silicone sealant. I like to use Silnet. And for our most important material, Sil Nylon. Sil Nylon is a waterproof, non-breathable fabric. It works great to help shed water and to break wind as well. I'm sorry. We're going to need 7 yards of sil to make the tarp. I got mine from ripstopbytheroll.com. They had really fast shipping and great prices. Actually, they had the best prices I can find on the internet. I recommend getting it from there. Down in the description below, I have a shopping list for you. It's going to show you the quantity of materials you need, what materials you need, and also where to get it from. So now that we have that stuff out of the way, let's go build ourselves a tarp. We're going to be putting catenary cuts on this tarp, or cat cuts for short. What cat cuts are adding a curve to each of your sides in order to give it a tighter pitch. Now there are a couple ways you can do this. The first way is by using a formula created by X-Trekker. If you look in the description down below, I have a link to that. All you do is you put in how deep you want your cat cut and it does the math for you. Then just jot it in accordingly. The second way is by making your own cat cut template. I'm going to show you how to do this next. This is my preferred method and I think it makes it a lot easier and a lot faster to make. I picked up this board from Home Depot. It's 6 inches wide and 8 feet across. Since our cat cut is going to be 7.5 feet long, you want to go down and mark it at 90 inches. Then you want to mark the center of your template, which is 45 inches. We're using 3-inch cat cuts on this tarp, so go back to the 45-inch mark you just made and go up and mark it 3 inches. Now that we've made our marks, take your string, go to the 90-inch mark, and thumbtack that point in. Now that we have our string attached to one side, go to the other side and grab the rest of your string. Now here's the 0 mark, okay, so this is 90 inches, and remember that 3-inch mark we made? Well, just keep pulling that string until we hit it, and bam, look at that. We have a cat cut line right there. So take your thumbtack, tack it into this side, and there you go. Now let's trace out our pattern. If you look in the description down below, I have an image that shows the overall pattern with dimensions as well. Now I understand that everybody has this big long room with a flat surface that's 11 plus feet that you can stretch out the tarp and make it a lot easier. So in order to show you guys how to do it in a smaller space, I actually went into one. This room is only 9 feet long. I'm actually in my laundry room, and I'm going to show you how to do it here. I laid out my fabric flat and bunched up all the extra down at the end. It doesn't matter where you get your fabric from, you're always going to have a rough edge, an uneven straight cut. Now we're going to go ahead and mark a line to make a straight one. Sil Nylon comes in a line grid pattern. You can use these lines by tracing on them in order to make creating your straight line easier. Now that we made our line on the edge, we're going to make 4 marks. 2 in the top, 2 in the bottom. We're going to start at the flat edge. The top of the tarp where we made our line, that's our first mark. Then go to the bottom of your tarp, and you have the line you made earlier. You go over 2 feet, and then you make another mark. If you have a room that's big enough to lay down all your fabric and make your marks, you can go ahead and skip this part. But for those who don't and are doing this in a smaller area, we're going to have to make a mark, move our fabric down so we can get to the other end. So this is how you do it. We have our first mark over here down at the flat edge that you made. Now go 5 feet over and make another mark right there. Then you want to go to the bottom of your fabric and do the exact same thing. So you can either go to your straight line mark you did earlier and go 5 feet over, or you remember mark 2 we made, 2 feet out? You can go from this point and do 3 feet over and still get 5 feet. Now that we have our 2 marks done, 5 feet in the bottom, 5 feet in the top, we can go ahead and drag our fabric this way. So just take your fabric and just pull it on back like this, and Keep pulling it. And then your 5-foot marks, I have mine right here. This one is right there. And now that we have enough space to get to our 11-foot, we can finish our next 2 marks and finish one side of the tarp. Now that we scooch our fabric over and we have our 5-foot marks here in the back, we're ready to make our last 2 marks. So back here at the 5-foot mark, measure 6 feet, and we're going to go ahead and get mark number 4. Then go over here to the bottom, and from our 5-foot mark, measure over 4.5 feet, or 54 inches, and make mark number 3. Now that we have these marks done, we're ready to make our cat cuts. The first cat cut we're going to make is from mark 4 to mark 3. If you want to use the formula instead of using the template, go ahead and jot that in. But for those who decided to make a template, here it is right here. So again, this was 90 inches long for what we made earlier, but this cat cut is only 60 inches. So what we want to do is mark 15 inches in, make a little mark, I already did it there. Mark 15 inches there to this side and make a little mark. Take those 2 marks, line them up with mark number 3 here, mark number 4 there. And once you have that in, you can trace it in. Because this is a 60-inch mark and not a 90-inch one, we can actually make a smaller cat cut and it's still going to give us a tight pitch. Now that we have our template down, we can trace it out. So much easier doing it this way. And we move it on down, tracing. I feel like I'm back in kindergarten. Bam! Cat cut number 1. I've scooped down our fabric so I can get to my second cat cut, which will be between mark 3 and mark 2, our 7.5 foot section. Now since this is 7.5 feet, you just take it and put this end on mark 3, this end on mark 2, and the bottom here will be flush with the bottom of your fabric. Once you have that done, you pull out your fancy marker and start tracing. Now for the third cat cut on the first side of our tarp, I have mark 2 to mark 1. Just line up your cat cut template the exact same way you did before on mark 4 to mark 3, and then trace it out like so. And then I'm going to talk longer to stall because I trace slow. Bam! And you have all 3 cat cuts done on the first side. Now that we have our first side traced out, we're going to go ahead and trace out side 2. So we need to get back to marks 3 and 4. So take your fabric and drag it on back until you get to side 3 and 4, which are easily identified by the cat cut you made earlier. Now sides 3 and 4 right there, are actually the first 2 points of your second side. So now that you have this here, you're going to take your template, and instead of having your curve go towards side 1 like you did the first time with marks 3 and 4, you're going to flip the template so the curve goes out. And you're going to do the exact same thing you did before with the 15-inch marks, line it up with marks 3 and mark 4, and then you're going to trace that out. Now that we made our first cat cut for our second side, we need to scooch the fabric so we can make our last 2 marks, marks 5 and 6. But in order to get there, if you're in a small room, we're going to have to make the 5-foot mark again. But just remember, this is the top now, and this is the bottom. So your first mark on the top, go to your first cat cut, mark 3, measure 5 feet over, make a mark. Then go to mark 4, measure 3.5 feet over, and make your mark. Then scooch the fabric back. Now that we moved our fabric back, it's time to mark 5 and 6. So go to your mark back here at the top, go over 6 feet, make a mark. Then go to the bottom, go to your mark, measure 4 feet, make your mark. Bam, marks 5 and 6. Now bust out your template or your formula and make your cat cuts just like you did before. The next thing we're going to do is take a sharp pair of scissors and you're going to cut along the trace pattern you just made. When you're done, you're going to have something that looks like this. We're finally ready to start sewing. Our first step is take both our ridge lines, match them together, then start your stitch a 1/2 inch in and sew all the way down. Ha! And there we go. Now that we have our ridgeline together, it's going to look like this. 2 pieces stuck together. To finish it off, we want to use a flat felled seam. In order to do a flat felled seam, we have these 2 little frilly parts here at the top. Now you're going to take your scissors and you're going to trim one of them in half all the way down. Once you've cut that down, your ridgeline will look like this. You're going to have the smaller piece and then the taller piece. In order to finish out the flat felled seam, you're going to take your bigger piece and it's going to fold over the smaller piece like that. Now that you have that done, you take the fabric and then you fold it again. So it's nice and flush on the tarp. And that's how we prep for a flat felled seam. Let's put it through the machine and finish her off. Before you run your fabric through the machine, you want to make sure both sides of your tarp are lying flat. It is beneficial to use pins during this part to hold down your seam. I personally don't use them. Shazam! We are almost done with this tarp. That's all there is for the flat felled seam, and we only have 2 more steps to go. Our first step is we're going to do a 1/4 inch rolled hem around the entire perimeter of the tarp. In order to do that, first you want to identify the top and the bottom of your tarp. It's really easy. The top is the pretty part and the bottom is the ugly part, because when you make a tarp, it's what's on the outside that counts. So take your tarp, take your edge, fold it back just like this, and you're going to just start sewing around the entire perimeter of the tarp. Now that we have our edges rolled and looking all pretty, it's time to reinforce our tie-outs. To do this, you're going to want to cut out 18 3-inch pieces of grosgrain, 3 pieces per corner. To start, grab a piece of your grosgrain and go to one of your corners. Lay the piece flat just like that. A nice strong stitch to use is a rectangle with a wide X in the middle. Go ahead and stitch that on. Next, grab your second piece. You're going to overlap it over the first one, just like that, and stitch it on with the same stitch you used before. Finally, our third piece. Start it off by overlapping it over the other 2, stitch it, then fold it over while making sure you have a hole in the middle so you can fit string or S-beaners through, and stitch that on. Your finished corners will look like this. Now that's pretty, huh? So let's finish off this tarp by doing the same thing for the other 5 corners. I bet you thought we were all done. Actually, I totally forgot about this step. But it's the last part and it's easy, I promise. So grab your seal net and let's seal the ridgeline. You want to lay your tarp on a flat surface with a ridgeline going down the middle. You grab your seal net and you shoot a little bit along the ridgeline here. And then it comes with this little handy paintbrush thingy, and just brush it on, going all the way down. Once you're done your sealing, you want to let it sit for a couple hours. You can sprinkle a little baby powder on it to help it dry a lot quicker. Now that we're all done, let's take it outside and see how she looks. Woo! That came out great, just look at that. If you have any questions, please comment down below. Don't forget to like me on Facebook where I have daily updates. And if you haven't already, please subscribe by clicking on the link. She says subscribe. Hey everyone, I'm Frankie. Have her in the shot. I put it, if I can get this stupid flimsy thing to go. Our flat felled seam is done.